الحضور الكريم، ننتقل الآن إلى آخر محطات الكونغرس الذي عشنا معه تجربة تنبض بالإلهام والثقافة والمعرفة، ونختتمه بجلسة حوارية ثلاثية تحمل عنوان الماضي من منظور رقمي، مقاربات إبداعية في تاريخ المخطوطات. يشارك في الجلسة كل من مدير متحف زايد الوطني دكتور بيتر ماغي، الباحث والأكاديمي وأستاذ كرسي الشيخ زايد للدراسات العربية والإسلامية في الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت دكتور بلال الأرفلي، ومديرة مدرسة الخط والزخرفة في أكاديمية الفجيرة للفنون الجميلة دكتور إسراء الهمل. فليتفضلوا.
مساء الخير. مسموع. مساء الخير. نحن أخيراً وليس آخراً. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this panel, Creative Explorations of Manuscript History, with Dr. Isra Al-Hamal and Dr. Peter Maggi, and myself, Bilal Orfali. So some imagination, I need your help. Imagine a centuries-old manuscript, very old. A manuscript of Mutanabbi, for example, with his own handwriting. It's something that Dr. Ali showed me the other day. So this manuscript is locked away in a library treasury for generations. Its pages fragile and its script fading. Now, picture that same manuscript digitized here on the screen and accessible to anyone, anywhere, revealing secrets once thought lost. We are living in a new era of manuscript studies, one that blends cutting-edge technology with creative passion to bring history to life. In recent years, science and scholarship together have led to remarkable manuscript discoveries. I'll give a few examples. Multispectral imaging revealed an ancient star map by the greatest ancient astronomical observer, Hipparchus, hiding beneath later writings in a medieval palimpsest. Palimpsest is a text underneath a text. They were able to discover the hidden text, the erased text. AI algorithms have also deciphered the text of a papyrus scroll that was completely destroyed by the eruption of a volcano in 79 AD. They rediscovered the text. At the same time, global digitization projects have put millions of manuscript pages online. We don't only access them, but we run AI algorithms to read them all in a few minutes, probably seconds even. For instance, a student in the UAE can explore the British Library's collection with just a click. Researchers can compare texts from Istanbul's Suleymaniye and Dublin's Chester Beatty side by side on the same screen. Thus, this digital access is transforming public engagement with manuscripts. Anyone can zoom in on high-resolution images of script and illumination, share discoveries on social media, and even probably also TikTok, or even remix historical content for creative projects. Manuscripts once confined to libraries are now sparking curiosity and inspiration worldwide. Creative collaborations are also bringing manuscripts to life in new ways. Museums are experimenting with immersive exhibits that use interactive digital displays to animate famous manuscripts. Let's use imagination again. Imagine seeing the blue Quran gilded pages projected across an entire gallery. Meanwhile, artists and designers are drawing inspiration from ancient calligraphy and manuscript illuminations, creating modern work that pay homage to these traditions. I'll mention, for example, the 101 series of the Center for Arabic Language. The book itself is designed like a manuscript. It gets its inspiration from manuscripts. The other day, I was with my students in the Louvre, and my student Rawan, who works on Arabic music, saw a whole wall of a manuscript of Kitab al-Aghani, and she said, oh, that's my dissertation in the museum, displayed, basically. So manuscripts hold immense cultural significance. These artifacts connect us to the voices of our ancestors. But do we actually need our ancestors? Maybe we don't. Maybe this is not just cultural heritage, it's a burden that we need to get rid of. Maybe we should not pay attention to manuscripts and think of art, of visual art, of something else, right? I think this is something that we want to discuss in this panel with you. So to explore these ideas further, we've assembled a distinguished panel of experts. At least we have two distinguished panelists with backgrounds in technology, art, and cultural heritage. Dr. Isra El-Hamal is the founder and general manager of the School of Calligraphy and Ornamentation in Fujairah. She is an artist educator dedicated to reviving traditional Islamic arts by blending classic manuscript artistry with contemporary tools to inspire new generations. Dr. Peter Maggi is the director of the upcoming Zayed National Museum in Abu Dhabi, which will open soon. It's a magnificent building on Saadiyat. I invite everyone to go and start enjoying this magnificent, really, building, remarkable. He also leads the Archaeology and Paleontology division at the Abu Dhabi's Department of Culture and Tourism, bringing over 25 years of experience researching the region's history. I myself am a panelist and took over the task of moderating. I'm the Sheikh Zayed Chair of Arabic and Islamic Studies at the American University of Beirut, and I'm also a professor at NYU Abu Dhabi. I'm a manuscript scholar. I work to bridge classical and digital approaches in the study of manuscripts. I edit, study, and publish these manuscripts. I'm obsessed with footnotes. My students here know this very well. And marginalia in all its forms, at the risk of becoming marginal myself. Together, our panel will explore how new technologies and creative approaches are revolutionizing the study and preservation of historical manuscripts, and how the public can experience these treasuries in new ways. So my first question to the panelists is actually an accusation that I always hear from my colleague and friend, Dr. Rodwan Al-Sayed. He always accuses me of having a manuscript fetishism, right? He's like, what do you guys do? It's manuscript fetishism. Who cares about this? So my question to you is our interest a form of manuscript fetishism, or is it actually meaningful?
It's very meaningful. We need it. Otherwise, like, if we don't read the history and appreciate it, we can't replicate it in our future and our present. So it's extremely important. I would even be more interested in it. So I encourage you.
Dr. Peter.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, and to have the opportunity to talk about this amazing topic in whatever time we have allocated for us. To answer your question, I have my background is in archaeology, in objects, and when I approached archaeological evidence, we approach it from the perspective that objects tell stories, and those stories are mediated through the interpreter or the scientist or the archaeologist, but they're mediated into the public realm through museums. So to my way of thinking, a manuscript is just another example of that. It's a way in which we can connect, as you so eloquently said, Bilal, we can connect with the voice of someone in the distant past. But what is extraordinary about manuscripts is beyond that which is written in the first instance in a manuscript, they encode a history of use, marginalia, production, which illuminate broader cultural, social issues in the past. So I moved from studying tiny fragments of broken objects in the last 8 years to studying manuscripts in Lisbon, in Abu Dhabi, in Madrid, which deal with exactly these issues. So I share very enthusiastically your perspective on this.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you, Dr. Peter. How are emerging technologies? AI is, of course, the elephant in the room that no one is ignoring, right? Every single panel talked about AI. So how are emerging technologies like AI changing manuscript preservation and study? And what new insights do they offer, in your opinion?
So there are two ways in which I think this works. The first one is you mentioned multispectral imaging. And at Zayed National Museum, we have a very heavy emphasis on scientific research. We also have an extensive collection of folios of the Blue Quran from the 10th century, one of the largest collections. And in our research on one of the folios, it became slightly visible to the human eye that underneath a decorative panel there was script, but we couldn't read that script. And so we employed multispectral imaging to illuminate, and for me, even though I deal with this technology quite a lot, to see something appear on the computer screen which the human eye cannot see is an extraordinary insight. So that's one aspect of manuscripts and the way in which they become palimpsests, they become layers of meaning.
How do I display this in a museum? Or is it just, in the library, for example?
Well, I can tell you how we explain it in the museum, because we just installed the AV, which explains exactly this technology, which is that we have the folio which you can see on the human eye, and then digitally the visitor moves a digital marker across the folio and the hidden text is revealed. And so they can see that which is not visible to the eye on the screen in front of them. And I think that is a very powerful message.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Dr. Al-Hamal, how do digital tools, especially AI tools, for example, complement traditional manuscript art without replacing its human touch?
So basically, a lot of people are scared of AI, especially in the art world, because art is the fun thing that we don't want AI to do. We want to do it. But if we look at it deeper, it can be like a great asset, because we can use certain technologies, like Dr. Peter said, into reading the manuscript, into understanding it further, because I only speak Arabic and English, and a lot of the manuscripts I love and admire are in Farsi. So it's really difficult for me to read them, for example, but I want to use that page, especially from an artistic point of view. So with AI, it kind of helps me to understand it a little more. And not just AI, we have a lot of digital tools that are useful to us, especially from an artistic point of view. So patterns are a big part of the manuscripts that I focus on. So I focus on the pretty manuscripts that have all the additional patterns. And for that, we have to analyze the patterns to understand it. And a lot of the times I take imagery of these pages. It's great that I can access them digitally as well, because I'm always on the Met collection online, like zooming in into a lot of the detailed motifs, and I trace these patterns and then I study them digitally a lot before I move to the human process. And the human process is irreplaceable, because you will always be able to tell if this page or this painting has been produced by a human or by a computer.
I can think of the Topkapi scroll, right, with all the ornaments, the zakhrafa, but can AI come up with new patterns, for example?
The thing about new patterns, in theory, there is unlimited form of patterns. But the patterns that we tend to appreciate and enjoy, a lot of them were done by humans. So I don't know how much AI is smart enough at the moment to replicate it, but there is a while yet. And a lot of the geometry, especially the most amazing geometry you see in buildings and manuscripts, have come up during the 15th century. So it's a huge thing that human came up with, and it's not just about creating patterns. Yeah, if you think of like, oh, the chairs are making a pattern, AI can make a pattern like that.
Yeah.
But like an accurate pattern and a correct pattern, like accuracy and correctness is really important in creating patterns. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just put shapes next to each other and that will be a pattern. But that's not a beautiful, balanced, harmonious pattern that I want to keep in a manuscript, for
It's
example.
almost like playing music.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one project I was involved in, for example, is that we had hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, probably millions, and someone was looking for the names of women that appear in these manuscripts, whether in the form, for example, of an isnad, the chain of men, or scribes, or etc. And we thought this will take us years and years, right? They developed an AI program that went through all the manuscripts and highlighted all the names of women, of course with mistakes, right? But it was actually 90% accurate. So it saved us a lot of time. So what are the pitfalls that come with using AI on cultural heritage and manuscripts?
I'll give you an example. So a few years ago, I went to this art gallery, and every time I see anything that resembles Islamic art, miniature, pages, manuscripts, it's like my interest has been piqued, and I go to that. And I went to this beautiful artwork, and I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. How did they even come up with this? And the closer I looked, I was like, but this looks kind of familiar, but in a really weird setting. And it turns out it was AI generated, and it was in an art gallery. And I thought that was a big pitfall for me personally, because like, why are we collecting AI's work? I can just generate it and yeah, it's like, but it was expensive. It was all sold out. So it's like people have.
It's a good way to make money.
It's a very easy way to make money, especially that producing a page by hand takes like unlimited amount of hours. It's like, it takes a long time. So I see that a bit sad, that I think that artists that produced that work had the skill to do something really creative if they pushed themselves, but I feel like they took a shortcut way too soon and replaced it with something AI generated. And apparently after a while, because a lot of people are using AI generated stuff, AI is going to be feeding from itself and losing the human intelligence that is feeding it at the moment. So I see that as a sad thing, because especially with our school, so we're doing the opposite of that. We are helping people to learn all the skills to produce everything themselves. So when AI artwork appears, it just kind of gives me a pause. I don't love it as a lot of people do. So for me, that's the main pitfall.
Thank you. Dr. Peter, what are the pitfalls in your work of
For AI?
Yeah, and cultural heritage. You know, and
So
manuscripts.
I'm very interested in AI, and I think there's no question that it's going to revolutionize the way we think and process knowledge. I'm also very interested in HI, which is human intelligence. And I think that AI works because of human intelligence. You mentioned the case study that you did where the AI generated 90% correct answers for the identification of women in a series of manuscripts. What would be of interest to me would be the 10% that they got wrong. And why did it get those 10% wrong? And I think, so that blend of, I mean, for me, the definition of human intelligence is organized curiosity. If you have organized curiosity, then AI becomes an extremely powerful tool. If you rely on it uncritically, I think it can produce results which are not illuminative. They're not actually that interesting. So for the work we do use AI. There's a program called Transcribus, which is an AI massive learning machine model, which doesn't translate documents. It transliterates them. From what you see in front of you, which might be a Dutch manuscript from the middle of the 17th century, extremely difficult to read, even with the knowledge of Dutch. It translates them into a written form, which then you can start to translate. And as part of that process, at the end, you feed back into the machine how accurate it is. So it's constantly improving. But in the end, to reiterate my first comment, the AI will change so much of the way we approach it, but the results are because we, as humans, have curiosity and thought. Yeah.
Beautiful, well said. So the second theme I want to discuss today is cultural identity, right? And also national identity, in a way, which is something we are very much very much interested in here in the Emirates. But so we all agree, I think, that yes, historical manuscripts are important for our cultural identity today. Turath is always there, right? Whether we like it or not, and whatever we want to do with this Turath, that is, you can think of many projects, but it's always there. But so my question to you, Dr. Al-Hamal, as an educator, right? How can we make these old manuscripts and calligraphy resonate with young people today?
So the young generation is quite important because in a way, it's the customer for a lot of educational institutes. So we have to be of relevance and interest to them. And the way we do it is we make manuscripts a little less distant. And in the School of Calligraphy and Ornamentation, we focus on that. So we have like themes every once in a while where we are focusing on a manuscript or we are focusing on a specific skill that you are learning from that. So instead of like, oh, this is like, oh, cool, like this is a great manuscript, but then that's like not related to the person. But when we say to the students, we want you to take this manuscript page as your main inspiration. We want you to produce something very similar. We want you to study this motif that appears in the border in like many times over. Take that and understand it. And when you understand that, it brings closeness between the person and the pattern because it's no longer distant. It's kind of familiar. And it's like the more you study these patterns that appear in manuscripts, the more you appreciate them. And the great thing with the patterns specifically is they don't only appear in manuscripts, they appear there plus every other object in Islamic history across the ages. So it's like general branding of Islamic art. So once you recognize the cotton motif, the crown motif, you start seeing them everywhere. So maybe you started with the manuscript, but then you are able to read the same ones from tiles when you are traveling. So it creates a really nice experience. So So it's like, the more you study them, the closer the student feels. And I feel like that creates a nice connection.
That's beautiful, because this is how art also works, right? I always tell my students that I used to see a whole museum in half an hour, right? And museums were boring for me. But then when you start looking at just one piece of art, you can sit for hours just looking at one piece of art, because then you appreciate the beauty, right? And the same with any literary text, I tell them, right? You can, skim through very quickly and think you've read it, but just stay with one paragraph for hours, and then you will discover, then this paragraph will start giving itself to you, right? And same with music, I guess. I tend to not appreciate songs the first time I listen to them. But if I keep listening to the same song, then I notice the nuances. It's the same with manuscripts. It's beautifully
and
said.
imagine if you were like learning that piece of music. You'll give it so much more attention as well than just listening to it.
And then start performing it every time in a different way.
100%.
Right? Dr. Peter, are museums interesting to children?
Well,
Will the Sheikh Zayed Museum be interesting?
I was saddened to hear that you found museums boring when you were young. But
Sadly, I missed a lot.
when you come to Mataf Zayed, I assure you that won't be the case. Yes. So to actually answer your question, first of all, about making manuscripts relevant to identity and tarath and culture and heritage and history, I think it's critically important to engage the youth in ways in which the manuscript comes to life, either through animation. So we have experimented. There are a series of Portuguese. They're extraneous, obviously. They're from overseas. Watercolors of towns of the UAE in the middle of the 17th century. And we've animated them, but what we did was we animated them in a way in which the animation isn't about the intent of the manuscript. It's actually about what plants were growing, what trees were growing, what crops were growing. So something which people can relate to directly. I think that playfulness, that animation is extremely important, and it's what we try to do in the museum. But I also think manuscripts have a bigger purpose with the youth of everywhere, the world, which is that too often, and we are all, of course, drawn into this world of our attention being shortened constantly, that our ability to focus on things, and this has been scientifically proven, is declining. Manuscripts require focus.
Yeah.
They require careful analysis. There's nothing rushed about reading them, or there can't be. So I think by doing that, and doing it in a playful way, manuscripts, ancient maps, which are of particular interest to me, they can really engage the youth. And the third thing I would say is that bring stories from the past, manuscript stories, which have a resonance today. So we did some work in, as I said, in Lisbon. We came across a beautiful description of gawa from the early 17th century, in which a Portuguese sailor who's never experienced this before, he's trying to write in his notebook what it tastes like and its effect. And he says gawa, which is called bun in the manuscript. He says, it clears the mind and it banishes sleep. And I think what a great way to connect people with something which is part of their culture today. And that's something we do in the museum.
Yeah, thank you. Are we to expect also mystery solving, for example, gaming?
Yes, yeah. We have gamification in the museum, both within certain elements within the museum, but also throughout the museum as well.
Beautiful.
And we also have on the app, we have journeys which someone can say, I'm interested in learning about falconry today, and they'll be directed to each part of the 6 galleries which deals with falconry. And I would add that in all of the work that we do, we emphasize the importance of inclusivity. So we have a particular focus on engaging people of determination in learning about these manuscripts, these objects, these stories. It is a critical part of what Zayed National Museum does.
Beautiful. So the third theme that I want to enter to is interdisciplinary collaborations, right? I think you both emphasized the interdisciplinary aspect of appreciating these manuscripts. But so the question is to both of you, do you have an example of a collaboration that turned manuscript research into a public exhibit or an art project, for example?
Fadli.
Thank you. I can give you an example from our previous exhibition. So SOCO, or School of Calligraphy and Ornamentation, is a newly established school. So last year we had our first art exhibition, and the whole theme was inspired from manuscripts. We wanted things to bring the history into just daily lives. So one of the artists that participated, Dr. Sarah Chowdhury, she was studying the geometry of a pattern that appeared in Quran, a Spanish Quran, that she wasn't even able to find digitally. It's not digitized yet, so she had to travel to, I think, either Spain or Portugal for it. And she found it in person, and she studied this pattern and created an artwork from it. Like, it's a laser cut pattern, and then she had to paint it. And it was such a nice way for you to interact with that page, because she literally took it and displayed it. And I think that's an amazing method of interacting with manuscripts, bringing them to our audiences. So it's just the beginning, and I think there's so many ways you could play with that.
Thank you.
I just think, to respond briefly in the 27 seconds we have, that multidisciplinarity is where the best results always come from. Yeah, for any discipline, for any scientific discipline, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if it's hard sciences, physics, astrophysics, chemistry, soft sciences, literature, arts, humanities. The best results always come when you move to the edge of your discipline and you raid across the disciplinary boundary as much as possible to get new insights. That time and time again is what that time and time again produces something that hasn't been seen before.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is critical for research, and it's critical of what we're doing at Zayed National Museum.
So to engage the public, so I went on a tour to the Louvre with my students 2 days ago. I want them to hear this, actually. That's why I'm mentioning it. And I noticed they were fascinated by statues, by big pieces, even little pieces that they appreciate the craftsmanship, right? Or craftswomanship. But when they see a manuscript, because the students of Arabic literature, they just avoid them and look at something else, because manuscripts, as I trained them, is not something you just look at. It's something you read and you struggle with, right? So this is the danger of putting, I think, a manuscript in a museum where it's appreciated for its beauty rather than its content, right? How do we solve this problem of manuscripts in museums, in your opinion?
I think you have to engage them with the reading of the text. Yeah, and even if they can read the text, you have to do it in a way in which some of the second level meaning becomes clear. And I think also we have to accept as museum professionals that there are 3 categories of visitors. There's the people who will just swim at the surface.
Yeah.
There are people who will snorkel down a little bit into the water. And then there's people like you and me that are scuba divers. We go deep into it, deep under the water, looking for meaning.
We sink and and go back to the surface.
And I think we have to accept that. But we have to do things in a way in which at least some of those 3 groups are engaged. But that is a massive challenge for all museums, and I think we hopefully will achieve that at Zayed National Museum.
I can go on, or do we take questions from... No questions from the audience? Okay. I'm really sorry, but thank you all for being here. Thank you for organizing this wonderful Congress. And please join me one more time in thanking our
Thank you,
speakers.
Bilal. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.